Episode 49 of the Auld Triangle is in your ears. It's on your eyeballs. We're back. And we have a big episode in store today. Chris Fields joins us to discuss the great start to his year and Team KF's year with Omran Chaaban's big win at UAE Warriors. He talks about a bunch of other stuff that will be coming a little bit later in the show. We talk Bellator in Belfast coming up right away. Lots of action to recap. Obviously, we had action over in Oktagon. We had obviously Omran's win as well. Lots of fights to look forward to. We're going to get straight into it. In just a few moments, I'm going to send it over here to the sheriff. He's back from Austin, Texas, or San Antonio, Texas. What's your
Sheriff Stevenson's in the house now?
Can I put these headphones up? They don't even fit.
Oh my god!
I can get you. Can I just do the episode like this for?
Yeah, I think that's the way you should do it. It doesn't really work aesthetically to have the earphones on. We're going to have to work something out because that's just a fantastic. There you go. Like you're like Jim Ross in the WWE back in the day. I love it, Andy. You're back from the trip. You're back in action, Andy, after the trip over there, collecting a few bounties over in, where was it? San Antonio? What?
I was working the Dutton Ranch, just, used to be a gaucho myself back in the day, as we talked about with Tiernan. So I figured I'd go back and put a shift in, yourself.
That was it. Now we're getting all prepared now, so I don't know whether Tiernan will be listening now. You'll be ready to go up there now and
Christmas and I had to show him.
You couldn't have it. It's over there. Get drawing cattle and saddling horses, Andy, and down there doing a bit of stuff in Mexico as well. Part-time Nacho Libre, part-time cowboy as well. Man, look at it. It's not just MMA you're a specialist in, Andy. It's a lot of things here. What's going on?
I'm basically the Irish Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide.
I love it.
No, had a good trip. Went to a wedding in Texas. Went for a holiday in Mexico City. I don't know if I was saying this before, lads. I fucking completely forgot to tell my boss in my real job until about a week before. I was like, oh, I can say it now because I've already gone and done the trip. But I was like, oh shit. So it was it was a bit of a nervy time, but we got there in the end, had a good time.
What was it? All right, boss, I'm off there tomorrow on my vacation.
Yeah, literally, I was like sitting there having lunch, being like, oh, so completely.
Can you get me a job in that place, Andy? Or myself and Caoilte, see what, if we were able to go off on holidays.
I may not have a job for long after pulling strings like that.
Caoilte, any queer in your neck of the woods? Any travels, any exciting stories? You didn't go off cowboying yourself down anywhere?
Tell you what, I don't live such an exciting life like Mr. Stevens over here, but I got to travel to an amazing place, just as good as Texas in County Dublin. Actually, it wasn't in County Dublin, it's Wicklow Bray. Look at this!
Look at this, lad. He has the mask on now. What's your Mexican?
Go on.
What do you reckon my name is?
I don't know. Get him into Cage Legacy there.
El Steven. That's what we're called. El Stevens. That's what we call you. El Stevens.
I didn't really think this through. I could just about hear you as well. But basically, I'm just going to keep on.
It looks good,
exhibiting all the stuff I bought in Mexico and Texas, basically.
There you go. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, anyway, on for the rest of the podcaster.
I think you should leave the mask on and the cowboy hat on.
Let's see if we can get the both on. This is probably a terrible audio
experience with Andy here.
Yeah, if anyone is listening here now, Andy is just showcasing all of the props that he got over in Texas. He has the cowboy hat on his head. Yeah, the cowboy. It suits.
Here we are now.
No, love it. Looking good.
I'll stop.
I don't think I've seen you. I don't think I've seen you looking as good on the podcast ever, Andy. Fair play.
I look like the man in the Iron Mask here.
Yeah, Caoilte, you were saying you were in an exciting place yourself there lately, were you?
Bray.
Oh, lovely. Oh, yeah. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely class. Yeah. So exciting.
Plenty of livestock in Bray, anyway.
Yeah. No, nothing exciting except I made an amateur move that I was telling you guys very disappointed myself in. Booked a trip all the way to Belgium, and then it's like decided, you know what? Hour train to Paris. Thinking it's a great idea. I have a rule for whenever I travel. Look up a football game for a team and look up an MMA event. And the one time I forget to look up an MMA event for Paris because there was none on in Belgium. It turns out that PFL Paris is on the day that I fly back. So I'm in Paris for the entire fight week. And then the fight night, I'm heading back.
Disaster.
You got to book an extra night. I feel like this is the moment. You got to pull in all the stops.
I'm trying to pull some strings. The suggestion of me staying on did not go down very well. So got to try and work this one and hopefully. So
what you're asking is the listeners to send in tips, tricks. How can Caoilte sweeten up his partner to let him stay at Paris for a night?
Just tell her that Cedric Doumbé is fighting, man. That should be enough.
Just propose.
Yeah, that's it. Now you're talking. Andy is on the ball there. He is on the ball. He is on. Well, there's look at you. You've loads of stuff going on. You've loads of stuff going on. The most exciting thing that's going on over here in Saskatoon in Canada is that it's 6 degrees here in January, and we're all delighted. It's almost shorts and t-shirt weather. But
you told us you were having a great time with a snowblower there recently. Use your imagination, lads.
That was off camera, Andy. Yeah, come on, don't be giving away my.
Have you seen? Is it Scary Movie? Have you seen that one?
yeah, dirty animal. Let's get moving on here before we totally turn things blue.
Cancel 5 minutes.
We're definitely not going to get. Yeah, I would be afraid we wouldn't get monetized for this one or whatever on YouTube. But look at
fat chance of that.
Yeah, I know, right? Bellator Belfast. Let's kick off with Bellator Belfast. Obviously, Sean did report, Sean Sheehan of SevereMMA did report from the PFL press conference that Bellator, they announced that they are going to Belfast. Sean said it was on Friday, March 22nd. That is happening. They're going to Belfast. We have one fight that has been announced that is being made official, and that's an exciting one too, and that's Karl Moore versus Corey Anderson for the vacant light heavyweight main event for the title. What a great fight too. But first, before we get into it, Caoilte, the decision to go up to Belfast, what do you think of it? How, in comparison, obviously, they've been going to Dublin for quite some time. I think Belfast is a great fighting city, to be honest. I remember going a long, long time back that the UFC actually came to Belfast. It was their first trip up there. I don't know if I want to say it was like UFC 70, maybe UFC 72. I think Forrest Griffin might have been in the main event, but I remember going up to the Odyssey up there. Belfast has some great fight fans. Always a great night up there. I remember being in the Ulster Hall a couple of times. They used to have the cage contenders up there. And it used to be always a great time up in Belfast. And look, we're heading back there March 22nd, and I'm sure everyone will be excited. But what do you think, Caoilte, of the decision to go up there in comparison? Obviously it could be a longer trip for all the boys back home if you want to travel up there, but it makes sense, and especially with the main event that has been announced with Karl Moore and Corey Anderson. And maybe we'll talk about a couple of other fights we'd like to see on the card as well.
Yeah, look, Belfast has, it's got a rich fighting history. The amount of fights that have gone on there, even in recent times of boxing, it's huge. So I think it's about time an MMA card's been held up there really for, a big MMA card that is. I know there's plenty others in the regional scene, but the likes of Bellator, PFL, UFC, it's about time. And it's we didn't think we were going to maybe get one of those after, because there was all the talks with Bellator before the acquisition, and now it's almost like what we thought was going to slip away is now happening. And I think timing's perfect. It's fantastic because there's so many fighters who would have come from Belfast who are based out there or have been previously to get to fight in that card and will bring a massive crowd. I'm buzzing. It's about time. It's been a long time since I've been to Belfast as well. I was there for Brave Card once and I loved it. The fans are fantastic. The arena's like incredible. And if they can fill that out, which I imagine they would for a title, for that main event, and for some of the other fights they can get on as well. Like, wow, they can put on quite a show. So it's brilliant, about time, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things up in the air, and like we were wondering ourselves, we hadn't heard too much news about, Bellator coming back to Ireland. If there was going to be shows, obviously with the PFL taking them over, there was a lot of fighters that were left in limbo. But I think the announcement of this event kind of eases some of that worry for the likes of, the up and comer professional fighters, along with the likes of Brian Moore has been there, Peter Quealy's been there for quite some time. You would imagine we might get to see a few of them on the card as well. But one person that we definitely should see on the card, Andy, I would say, is Liam McCord. sport. And, you know, with everything that's been going on, I feel bad for Leah in the current situation. Obviously, Kayla Harrison moving over. Cyborg is kind of not really giving her dues. I think, you know, Leah pulled off one of the best performances of her career so far when she beat Sarah McMahon, and in my opinion deserves that next crack at Cyborg. And, you know, I would have thought myself, even though there's nothing wrong with the main event that we had, that we have right now in Karl Moore and Corey Anderson, a title fight, a big title fight, but, you know, maybe we might get to see Leah McCourt. It's not complete. I think we will get to see Leah McCourt on there, but who she fights and if it will be for the title, I think is the big thing in question. What do you think of the whole situation right now that's going on around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep up with it. Like, nothing's really happening, but at the same time, it's hard to keep up because we're kind of seeing it play out before our eyes through Chris Cyborg's social media, which she really doesn't seem to be happy with the PFL. And obviously, you know, whether it's Cyborg herself or her team or whoever, tweeting on her behalf. But look, there's some discontent there, definitely. Now, that's not to say that she won't sign, but there's, you know, you log on to Twitter on any given day and it could be a different fight she's calling for or a different promotion or whatever. So, but I think it makes all the sense in the world. If you're bringing a Bellator show, you know, Cyborg has expressed very publicly, repeatedly, that she's up for this David McCourt fight in Belfast. And I mean, that'd be brilliant to have two homegrown fighters. Like, they've done so many shows in Dublin over the last number of years. The last time they went to Belfast was in 2017. So that's what, 7 years ago now. Like, a long time, and I think it would be a fresh change. Obviously, we saw Cage Warriors there recently, but I think to have two Irish fighters in title fights would be brilliant. Again, we talked about this before. I think if they don't make the Cyborg fight, I've heard whispers they may want to try and make that Sinead Kavanagh rematch. So I don't know if that would happen. I think that the Cyborg fight makes more sense. The title fight makes more sense for Leah and for the card itself. But yeah, I think it's a great move going up there. I think it's just, you know, a bit of a refresh. We've seen the Dublin cards kind of repeatedly over the last number of years. I hope that they don't just, you know, go away from doing cards in Dublin or anything like that. But I do think having one at Belfast is a good shout.
Absolutely, 100%. When you're thinking, obviously, another standout fighter that we would love to see on the card, it would have to be James Gallagher as well. I think that's a no-brainer as well, Caoilte. Is there anybody else that you'd like to see, or any potential matchups that you'd like to see on that Belfast card? Obviously, at the time of recording, we've only had that one confirmed fight, so I'd imagine they're going to put together a fairly hefty card. If we're going based off the comparisons that we've had in the previous Dublin cards over the last number of years, you know, we've had as many as 15, 20 fights on some of those cards. So they'll be looking to kind of get some of their talent out, and there's plenty of options there to put on fights. Any ones that you'd like to see, or any, maybe unfair of me to ask you what fights, but definitely fighters for sure that you'd like to see on the card.
Yeah, it's weird how they could play this, because, you know, there's going to be a lot of fighters who would probably be in the tournaments that'll be going ahead in, like, Paris, the PFL. So I don't know if they're going to go with the traditional Bellator roster they would have had before. James Gallagher is the obvious name I pick out. But outside of that, and the ones that would have competed on Dublin, like, all of them really, a lot of them would compete in SPG, train out SPG. I'd love to see the likes of Dara Kelly get a fight up there, because I know when he's fought up in, the likes of Clan Wars and so on, he's always pulled in a big crowd, and I think he'd get a great pop if he was competing up in Belfast, to be honest. I think he'd draw a really big crowd, as he does in Dublin. The likes of him, I'm not sure I'd love to see Nate Kelly, but I'm not sure how that would work either. Like, I have a lot of questions. I always have bloody questions when it comes to PFL and Bellator stuff, but as to what's the crossover, fighters who've competed in PFL previously, will they be able to compete in this card, or how does it work?
They can do whatever they want, really, can't they?
Yeah, I guess.
Whether they will or not is I suppose another question.
It'd be interesting to see what to do. Andy, well, let's focus on the main event that has been announced so far. Karl Moore, Corey Anderson for the vacant light heavyweight title. I remember a little while back, a little bit of a Twitter exchange between yourself and Karl's coach, John Kavanagh. You were saying, we wanted him, and we felt that Karl has deserved an opportunity like this for quite some time. He's getting that opportunity against Corey Anderson. John had said, there's a plan in place. He was was happy with the structure of Karl's career and how it was going so far. And it's looking that the plan is coming to fruition. He's getting that chance. He's going in there against a former UFC vet and a guy who has been making a good name for himself in Bellator, in Corey Anderson as well. And this is shaping up to be a really, really exciting fight.
It's a huge opportunity for Karl, isn't it? And yeah, you're right. It is. I suppose John was right. He was kind of saying, have a bit of patience, and we'll get there. And now Karl is fighting for a title. So who am I to argue with that? But I think this is hard. I think this is well earned, through the victories that Karl has had in the cage. He's on a 4-fight win streak now in the promotion, taking out a guy in Alex Polizzi who was kind of, I can't remember the exact ranking. He might have been ranked about 5th or something like that.
He was sixth at the time. 6th or 5th or something, yeah.
So it needed to be a big fight, and I'm delighted to see Karl get that opportunity. I think it's a brilliant fight against Corey Anderson, and I think it's one that, it's an exciting one. It's against a guy who is known. It's not just there's something to having fought in the UFC, in prominent spots in the UFC, and that transcends over, I think, a bit more to casual fans. So, people might know the name Corey Anderson, see, Jesus, there's a local lad going in and fighting this guy for a world title. Like that's something to get really excited about for the fans. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great main event, especially in Belfast. And I've another little sprinkle to put in here in a bit, but I might save it if we want to keep talking about this.
Oh, you can't tease us like that, Andy. Come on, give it to us.
Right. So I don't want this to happen because I still want the other route. But if I'm PFL or Bellator, I am doing everything that I can to get Paul Hughes on this card.
Yes.
I would like to see Paul Hughes in the UFC, but you're coming in, I know it's Bellator, but you're PFL, you've bought them, you've a show on in Belfast, and you have a guy who is, who many see as the next superstar to break out of that region. He trains in a gym in Belfast. I think it'd be a very, very smart move by them to try and make a move there while kind of Paul is in this limbo state where we haven't seen him signed to the UFC. So, I don't even know if that's an option right now as far as contractually with Cage Warriors and things like that. But
I think that's the big thing, isn't it? It's could he get out of his contract at Cage Warriors? Would Cage Warriors be willing to allow him out of his contract? I'm sure I think we're all sitting here, and obviously we all feel that Paul Hughes should be a part of the UFC. How he hasn't been signed, I mean, we could come on here every single Auld Triangle podcast and talk about that. Just the fact hasn't happened. I think, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we've mentioned it again. We may get a bingo card and mention giving out about Paul not being signed to the UFC, but I think it comes from a place wanting this for all three of us. I don't want to speak for the two of you, but I'd be very confident in saying we just want to see Paul Hughes fighting. We didn't get to see him enough last year in 2023. I don't want this kind of be dragging on. I'm totally confused at the situation. That's why nothing has materialized. Whether it's the Cage Warriors Dublin card, whether it's the Belfast card, we've got to see that man competing because he's absolutely sensational fighter. And to have him sitting on the sidelines, it must be frustrating the life out of him as well as his team and coaches. He's dealing with a lot of circumstances right now that are out of his control. And I would not argue that point whatsoever, Andy, about having him on that Belfast card. I mean, it'd be a scene that would be set for a guy like Paul Hughes to come on there and get the reception and perform and showcase his abilities. But look, at fingers crossed that something does materialize with Paul and we get to hear something about his next steps. But we shall move on. We will recap some of the action that has happened. Obviously, last weekend we had Oktagon 52 in Newcastle. A couple of Irish fighters fighting on the card, Dennis Frimpong, Armin Herzog. Mixed bag of results. Let's start with Armin Herzog's fight first. A rematch with Jake McHugh. A submission by rear naked choke was locked in by Jake in the first round, which was forced Armin to tap Caoilte. Unfortunate turn of events for Armin after obviously picking up the win on the Oktagon challenge. Didn't get the job done this time around. What were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, look, it just very dominant from McHugh, really. Very, very polar opposite nearly to what we saw the first time. And then we got to see, I guess, Jake McHugh's strengths that we expected to see previously as well. But Yeah, it's a good win for him and a bad loss for Armin. But look, I guess that's the beef crushed now. I think they've stopped jawing at each other, and Armin even took the loss really well. You could see him on social media and putting up videos with Jake, and yeah, it looks like that's squashed and they may be 1-1. But look, Jake got the win and where it mattered for your pro record, and it's just on to the next one for Armin. Hopefully he gets another shot in Oktagon. He's it's 2 losses in there now, but they do seem to like him. He's got a good personality for Oktagon as well, especially after that TV show, and I imagine he's got a good fan base there from what we've seen so far. But yeah, look, it's just one of those fights, and yeah, that's it really.
It'll certainly, I would expect Andy to see Armand back in there again. Like Caoilte said, he puts on entertaining fights. He's outspoken, showing a little bit of class after the fight, obviously in defeat as well, just showing, going up and showing with the videos with Jake McHugh and everything like that. So I would expect, I'm sure you would as well, to see him back in there in the Oktagon cage.
Yeah, I think Oktagon are investing in these guys, and they like the storytelling. They like having something outside of the fight itself to be able to sell, because look, they're a new promotion in this region, so they need things like that to draw interest. So I definitely think that Armin will be back, and his pro debut was a close fight. I don't think he definitely wasn't blown away in that one. On another note, I don't think this was the smartest decision to take this fight, to take this rematch. Like, I commend Armin for doing so, for kind of giving Jake that opportunity, especially, there was some beef and some taunt and stuff on the show, and like to get, like, fair play to him for giving Jake the opportunity to try and get it back. But I think when you've gone in there and you've had as about a perfect a win as possible in their first match, it was kind of a lose-lose no matter what here, and now you're in a situation where you've beaten this guy on a reality series, and yeah, it was an exhibition fight. It was a win, but it was an exhibition fight, so it doesn't go on your record. But you look at Jake McHugh, who's sitting at 2-0 in his pro career, and Armin's now 0-2. A complete kind of flip flop since then as to where their careers have gone. So again, fair play to him. Like, he's I can't fault him for doing it, but I wouldn't have taken it myself.
I think we have a little bit of the benefit of hindsight, on our hands here as well when we're talking about this too. But I definitely don't disagree with what you said. Like, it's hard to kind of go in there and top the performance. But if you're Armand, you went in there, you got the job done. Let's be real, relatively easy the first time around. He might have come in there with the confidence, thinking he might have done something similar.
True.
And then you do have your win on your record then as well. But look at. That's MMA for you. You sometimes you zig when you should have zagged. And look at Armand will be back, and he'll be putting on some good shows again. Andy, I'll go back to you. Dennis Frimpong was in there. He took out Jan Sorky by unanimous decision. A good performance from Dennis, and I think another guy that he's back against the wall, something serious now coming in here as well. So look at the unanimous decision. I'll let you take us through the fight, what you thought of his performance, and we'll have a little bit of a chit chat after fact.
Yeah, I thought this was a clear, comprehensive victory for Dennis. A really, really confident guy, and obviously he's very outspoken outside the cage. We had him on here. He was a good crack, and he's that way. He's kind of like got a bit of the Kevin Hollands about him inside the cage, where he's going to be talking to you, he's going to be flowing, he's going to be showboating a little bit. I did pick up on, I think it was Luke Barnett was commentating the fight and kind of saying that he would have liked to see him push on and kind of throw that to the side a bit and just look to get the finish. I think that Dennis was a superior fighter. And look, make no mistake, like whatever about this guy's record, this guy had something like 30 pro fights or something like this.
Yeah,
that's a huge experience differential.
And you know what? Sometimes, Andy, that experience can kind of help you survive in there as well. Yeah, Dennis probably he could have kind of put on, but I think when you're in, I would look at it from Dennis's point of view. When you're in there, you don't want to lose this fight either, because then you move to 0-3 or whatever, and that's not good for Dennis. I think the most important thing for Dennis in this fight was getting in there, getting the job done, getting his hand raised, and then we move on to the next one. Sorky, very experienced, as we said. Look at a losing record, but when you've been in there for that amount of time, you've seen a lot of things, you've done a lot of things, and you can kind of fight a certain fight to survive as well. And he did it in stages, and Dennis is a showman too. He'll talk about the activity outside of the fighting. He brushing the shoulder and waving off the shots, and it's a bit of fun. It's what the Octagon kind of brass want to see as well, I guess, at the same time.
It is, and I think you nailed it there. Like, I think that Siroki was surviving. Like, he was closing the distance. He was kind of ducking under. Unfortunately, when Dennis was throwing those high kicks at the start, he just had a knack. Obviously, there was a height differential between them as well. It was kind of a funny visual seeing them in the cage against each other. But he kind of duck under, close the distance. But like, he was really doing nothing once he got Dennis down, or he had him against the cage, and Dennis was landing even. Like, he landed some absolutely beautiful, devastating knees. Like, he had him hurt at one point, and it looked like he almost had him out there. But look, I think there's loads of positives to take from the. Well, obviously there's loads of positives to take. Like, he won the fight, and it wasn't necessarily all that close. Again, there was that one round where, Siroki kind of laying him for a good bit, but it was the knees, and he had him hurt towards the end of that round. And I think that Dennis did his best work in open space, especially in the third. He was really piecing them up. And yeah, you're dead right. Like, that pro debut, split decision loss. Obviously, you're fighting a guy in George Staines, who's a really, really talented guy to go, 0-2. And he had that win on the regional scene. That was, depends, I guess, where you look and which website you look, whether it's counted or not. But he needed this win. So maybe this is actually a good thing that it went the distance and he gets that experience. And, he's getting taken down by, to be blunt, a lesser skilled fighter. So you can kind of, you can learn from that and take that in. So then maybe when you're in a situation there in another fight, you're better equipped to get right back up and go to work again and put more damage on him and get that finish. But I thought it was a very solid showing from Dennis overall.
100%. Caoilte, I think, as a Muay Thai guy yourself, Dennis's elbows, Dennis's knees, and I think his overall ability to use his length inside the cage as well is something that really shone through for me in this fight.
It'd be an absolute nightmare to stand across from, I imagine, with the length of his limbs. Like, it's between the teeps, those knees would be just lethal, and they were lethal. And it's where, he could have got, maybe, as Barnett said on comms, he could have gotten the finish and could have pushed for it. But those valuable few minutes and kind of, those valuable extra few minutes he would have gotten in the cage to maybe kind of get more experience and learn to use those tools and see different versions, despite maybe risking losing the fight at some point. But he was able to just build on that experience, and it'll probably stand to him moving forward. And look, striking's brilliant. He's good to watch. As you said earlier, he's got that bit of Kevin Holland about him, and it's mad. Like this, I think it was a really risky fight to take. Like, he's gone against the lad. Your man had 21 fights before Dennis even made his amateur debut.
29. Oh, sorry, but right, gotcha.
Yeah. Like, Dennis hadn't made his amateur debut by the time your man had 21 fights, and he fought really experienced lads.
And a guy who was coming down in weight as well would have fought at a little bit of a heavier weight too. I think at a certain stage of his career, I guess you fight plenty of weights and you have almost 30 fights as well. But look, he'll be delighted with the win. Obviously, when you're in there, you always want to kind of push for the finish. And if you want to look at it from the other side of the stick, maybe showing that little bit of experience not to push too hard, because if you push too hard, you could walk onto a shot and it could be all over before you know it. But yeah, good win for Dennis. He'll build on from that. I'm sure we'll see him again on an upcoming Octagon card, and fair play to him for the win. And we look forward to seeing both Armand and Dennis back as well.
To see him calling it Aaron Chalmers for a boxing fight with a 4 in his gloves there after.
I love it.
He had about 5 fights up his sleeve ready to go already.
Oh, I love it. Call your shot. That's what you can't argue that at all. Let's move on to another very, very impressive win, another impressive performance, and that's Omran Chaaban, who went over there to UAE Warriors 47 and took home the UAE Warriors welterweight title over a Vaisam Hamani by an arm triangle choke in round 5. This will lead us right up into the Chris Fields interview. We'll head on over there and hear what Chris had to say about this fight. But we'll share a little bit of our own opinion on the fight. First of all, Andy, it was a brilliant performance from Omran, who, with Omran, we had seen the level of skills that he possesses in his previous fights, and he's gone on there and he's put on some impressive performances. Lots of ups and downs in this fight. He had to dig deep, and, we'll hear Chris's thoughts on it in just a few minutes. But, sometimes you need and I know Chris will see in this interview ahead, Chris didn't really exactly want it to go this way, but sometimes you kind of need those fights to find out stuff about yourself, like how far you can dig down deep when you really need to, and you know, it can grow the belief in yourself as well. And I believe that, you know, when Omran is older and he'll look back at a fight like like what happened at UAE Warriors, and he will be saying, look, I found out a big fucking thing about myself on that fight, and he'll use this fight to kind of step forth. And look, we all were very high on Omran Chaaban. We're still high on Omran Chaaban, and this was a tremendous performance from him.
Yeah, it really was, like the ability to, as you said, dig deep and get the finish when it really, really matters. Like, he's so calm. Like, I interviewed him before the fight, and I was kind of talking to him a little bit about this, and he was just, I don't know, he's such a chill guy. He goes to coffee shops by himself. He's like, yeah, I'm so content in my own company. And like, when I watched him walk out, and as he was waiting for Hamami to walk out, or the announcements are going on, and he's just like, he's leaned up against the cage with his arms behind his back, but he looks like he's just like waiting for a bus or something. And here he is about to be in a 5-round fight, an absolute war for a title. His shots, one of the things I'm really impressed by always when I watch Omran fight is his composure, which, you know, when we're talking about his kind of the relaxed nature that he has, it shows in his fighting too. Like, he's in there, he's using his jab in the first round to kind of gauge the distance, sliding out of range of the kicks, and he just looks so calm in there, and the ability to kind of see the fight play out in front of him and to read it. Now, as it goes on, Hamami realizing, look, he doesn't have the distance at his on his side here, so he needs to close the distance, and he starts, you know, at first maybe overextending a little bit in the shots, but in round 2 they start to land and they start to crack. And the way I saw the fight play out was 1 and 3 for Omran in, you know, relatively close rounds, but I thought they were clear for Omran, and then 2 and 4 for Hamami in a much bigger way. Like, he was landing a lot of the bigger shots, had Omran in trouble. But I think when Omran was in trouble, there was at one point the commentators were talking about, I don't know if this is a good idea to be grappling here, and I thought it was the absolutely perfect approach from Omran, because he was hurt and he needed to survive in those moments, and the ability to do that and dig deep, as you said, and then, you know, reset at the break, come back out, and then every single time when he had a tough round, he came back out stronger, and no more so in the 5th round when he comes out and almost immediately gets the submission. So of course you don't want to be taking some of the damage and some of the shots that he took, but we learned a lot about Omran Chaaban in that fight that we didn't know already, and it's very, very promising for his future at only 23 years old.
Yes, that's a big kind of thing as well. Very, very young in his career, Caoilte. And I think, you know, maybe if you're looking here and you're listening here, you might not know UAE Warriors all that well, but Caoilte, that's a tough promotion over there. That has a hotbed of talent, and once you go over there, you ain't getting an easy fight. And I think Omran experienced that on the night, but I think on top of everything else, to go over there and perform the way he performed in an organisation like UAE Warriors was very, very impressive.
It's mad. You don't actually think about that, of how tough the fights actually are in UAE Warriors. They don't really mind. They'll just throw you in, and you could get fed to an absolute killer you've never heard about before. And yeah, tough fights. He went in there and took on probably the toughest challenge they had in that weight division, and felt the wrath of your man for a lot in that fight. You know, he got dropped, he got hurt, he got cracked. And then he showed he has that dog in him and went out in round 4 and got the finish. It was... man, it was class. Very good performance overall. And,
brilliant stuff.
Yeah, loved it.
Class. That sets the table nicely for the interview with Chris Fields. What we'll do is send it over to Andy now. He's going to get us kicked off with Chris, and we'll be right back.
The last time we spoke to this man was episode 5, March 2022, almost 2 years ago since we last had Mr. Chris Fields on the podcast. Welcome back to the Auld Triangle. And it's a very exciting time right now, Chris, for you and for the gym. Obviously, Omran, after winning the UAE Warriors title, we wanted to get you on to chat about that and a whole heap of others. How are you doing?
I'm good. I didn't think it was that long, lads, I'll be honest. I thought, Jesus, right, we're getting old then, aren't we?
Yourself now.
Yeah, well, I am getting, well, we're all getting older. There's no escaping that, bro. That's you, that's it. Yeah, I'm good. Exciting times, like you said. You know, a lot of things kind of happening at the minute. A lot of fights about to be announced as well for different shows, and kind of I feel this is a big year. I'll put a lot of pressure on myself that this is a big year for the team. Like, this is a kind of coming out year for us.
Yeah, I'm glad that you teased a few fight announcements coming up soon, so we can just try and get you to accidentally break those along the way here in the next 20 minutes or so. Well, look, let's start with Omran. I thought it was an amazing performance. Obviously, back and forth, he had to dig deep, but he came out on top and got the 5th round finish in his title fight at UAE Warriors. Were you happy with it overall? And yeah, what was the reaction?
So I think, look, I'm very happy that Omran got the title win. I'm very happy that he got the finish. I'm happy that he was able to dig deep, and because there was times there where the fight wasn't going all his way. But it stands to reason that as a coach, you don't like the same fights that fans do. So obviously, to everyone, that's an amazing fight. It's a barn burner. 2 boys going at each other. I want clean, kind of calculated wins. I spend weeks formulating game plans that people don't stick to. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm very happy. I like you all know how high I am on Omran and how much potential I think he has. And I think you're probably only looking at about 65-70% of it there that night.
And obviously, you're talking there about, from a coaching perspective, wanting a certain fight versus the fans, but also when you know this guy so well, you probably don't want to be seeing him taking some of the damage or some of the shots. You've known Omran for a number of years now. We've had him on the podcast before, and we've talked to him about the fact that he moved over. But what do you remember about the first time he moved over, the first time he visited? What was he, 18, 19, I think, at the time?
I think he was 18. He didn't look 18. He could grow a better beard than I can grow now. But he strolled into the gym at 18, and he kind of just, so the contact was that my strength and conditioning coach my whole career, Owen Lacey, had actually trained a guy that was looking after Omran's strength and conditioning, and he'd said that this kid was looking to take it a bit more serious. Omran just kind of arrived. It wasn't really that planned. He just arrived at the door and was like, all right, I want to be a professional fighter. I was like, all right, you know me with that stuff. I'm like, if I see a kid who's put himself out there, I'm going to do everything I can to help. And we kind of had an immediate connection. We've always kind of, same way I am with most of all my lads, really. I have a different relationship with everyone, but a close relationship with all my guys. You could see the ability very early on, very good hips, listen to instruction well, wanted to learn, willing to work hard, all the things you're looking for as a coach.
I know that he lived with you for a bit, and obviously he's been living in the gym for a couple of years now. When you make the decision to let someone, I guess, come into your house and live with your family, would you do that for any fighter that's coming over, or was there something kind of particular about Omran that you're like, okay, yeah, this is a guy that's worth investing in?
Yeah, obviously James had the same situation. I suppose he's like the new James, as it were. What's that term I used to use for James? He's like the bastard son I never wanted, and I didn't even get the affair. So I'm just so good. But he, I don't know. I generally try to take people at their face value. I'm very kind of. A lot of lads will tell you this on the team. I keep my house kind of separate, my home as separate as I can. That's why I put the rooms in the gym. At the time, James was staying in the gym, so Omran kind of had nowhere to stay, so he was staying in my house, And then at other times, James had stayed when it was too cold in the gym and stuff. But my family be very close with both of the guys, and pretty much any kind of senior member on the team here, my family be close with. I think that's important for me, that I have that connection with the lads.
Oh, there's a lot we could talk about Omran, but I'm conscious we've a lot to talk about as well. So I'll move the Omran stuff on a little bit, because I do want to talk about his fight a bit more as well. But before, ahead of the fight, he obviously made the decision to leave Cage Warriors. He had a great run in there. He's won his last 3 or 4 on the bounce. It seems like there's a perception anyway that there's an association between Team KF and Cage Warriors. Omran obviously made the decision to move away, to go with the UAE Warriors route. What was that I guess decision making process like from your side?
So me and Omran would obviously and all the guys. So there is just a thing that my guys see the route that myself and Caoilte and Phil and other guys took from the gym, and they're just kind of following that. Cage Warriors are they'll take guys. If I go, look, this kid is good, have a look at him, but like they're not like pressuring my team to go, and there's no pressure from me for my team to go there either. The guys just see it as their best route coming through Europe. I think Omran was looking at it a different way, that his fan base is probably going to be based in the Middle East a good bit, you know. Obviously he'll have that Irish fan base, but like he's probably never going to be treated like, you know, from a day-to-day fan, he's not going to be treated like an Irish lad, you know, that kind of way. And then in Finland, he'll have his own base, but I don't know how big the sport is there. So I think he thought his best base and his best way to make it would be through UAE Warriors, and to build that kind of base over there, you know.
Yeah, like
so we chatted at that, and we kind of felt that was the route to go, and that's the way he wanted to go, and I was happy to help him along. And Carl had some contacts there, and he was able to make some calls and make it happen.
Yeah, and look, it was definitely a good call with the way the fight played, and obviously he's the champion now. There was a great moment in the corner between the 4th and the 5th round where he's kind of headbutting you. I saw you saying, I know one of them gave you a concussion. You know, what's going on in your mind in between the 4th and the 5th there?
So I actually figured something out about myself at that fight. I kind of knew, when I think back, I knew it all along, but my style of coaching is just, I'm a critical coach. Like, so I never really look, like, I'm always looking for the mistakes we're making so we can fix them, rather than looking at the good we're doing. I could probably do with improving that a little bit. So I'm thinking, like, in my head, I'm like, we need a finish here, because all I'm seeing is the mistakes that I made and the shots that I landed, how I can fix them, and I'm probably not seeing enough of the good work that Omran is doing throughout the fight. I also feel like the momentum was on that guy's side. That's what I felt going into the 5th. You know, he'd had a very good 4th. Omran was on skates at one point in the 4th round, and I think, like, I needed to drag Omran back. You can see by him it didn't take a lot, you know. A couple of words and he was ready to go, and then I kind of got in his face a little bit. He's a very, as you probably know from interviewing him, he's a very chilled individual. He's very relaxed, and I think sometimes he needs that kick up the arse to get going. You know, he needs to be told, like, it's time to go now. I've had to do it in another fight. The other time you fought on UAE Warriors, I like, in between rounds, I was saying to him, you need to go, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go, and I was like, I'm gonna curse, sorry lads, but I was like, stop fucking saying it and fucking do it then. And then he went out and finished the guy in the next round, you know. So I think he's just one of those guys that needs that little push on a little bit, because he'll cruise a bit. And, you know, me and him have picked apart the fight since, and that's something I do with all my guys. We picked apart the mistakes that we felt were made, and I felt Omran did his best work on the front foot, and then he started trying to sniper and counter strike, and he was getting caught down on the back foot. But most of the good work Omran done was when he was pressing and keeping just at that range.
He's still quite young. Like, he's only 23. He's a champion in an organization. What would you like to see next from, like, if you can say pan out the next year? Are you hoping that he's getting straight into the UFC fairly quickly, or are you willing to, or are you kind of thinking he might simmer a bit in UAE Warriors?
I'd be happy for him to go on and kind of have a slow build in the UFC. I think he's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for young guys that are exciting to watch, look for the finish. Like, I think he's, out of his 6 wins, he has 5 finishes. And there are a variety of finishes. Some are TKOs, some of them submissions. So he's going after it. I think I'd like to see him, like, slowly build in the UFC, kind of maybe only fighting 2 to 3 times a year max, you know, and kind of like the level of opposition going up each time. I feel like if you look at that last fight, that's a UFC level fight. That is like 100%. I'm not saying it's a world title fight in the UFC, but it's definitely a prelim level fight. I've not hired him, some that we've watched recently. So, you know, it's always a risk staying around at organizations like that, because one loss can set you back so far, you know. So if the opportunity arises, we'll be gone.
There was a time in the gym where you had a lad who was around 23, a very, very talented welterweight, and well, I suppose at the time he wasn't a champion, but he went on to be a champion of Cage Warriors in Ian Gary. How would you compare? And look, I know obviously there's maybe no love lost between the gym and Ian, but how would you compare Omran at this age or at this point in his career to Ian at that point in his?
Yeah, you know, but see, the thing is, you know, there's obviously the issues and things that went on or whatever, but like, as I've said in every interview, I've never ever questioned Ian's ability. I think his skill set is phenomenal. I think the kid is a really, really high level fighter. You know, that's not up for debate. I think anyone questioning that, you know, I know he's been getting a bit of shit the last while on social media or whatever, but anyone questioning his ability as a fighter is a bit mad, and they don't really understand the sport. I think to look at from an outside view, looking at both of them, I think like for me right now, I think my coaching is more rounded than it was when I was working with Ian. So then I feel that Omran's game is more rounded for the same reason, you know.
What is Omran's potential in your eyes?
I honestly feel that he has potential to be a UFC champion. I think he's young enough. I think he's hungry enough. I think he's shown the grit part of his game there that, you know, you don't always know if someone has. It's one of those, people can tell you all the time, but you never know till it happens. You know, people are going to look for a way out. I think he'll tell you, if you ever speak to guys that grapple in the club, you'll realize just how dangerous his grappling game is. His striking game is really good. There were some issues with defensive striking, and they'll be fixed now. I won't let that ever happen again. It's an issue I've seen arise from a few of my guys and previous students leaning back when they're to look in the counter and then getting themselves into trouble. So it's something I'm really going to put a lot of work into over the next kind of 6 months or so.
It is funny you mentioned that, because that I suppose early on when Ian was coming up, it was kind of the, not criticism, but we were like, oh, you know, could he be leaving his head out there? And I remember he used to get quite angry. I promise you won't ask too many more questions about Ian, but he does have a fight against Jeff Neal coming up, and you know his game very well. How do you see that stylistically playing out?
I think, like, you know, I think if Ian can play his game well, he should win the fight quite comfortably. He has to stay on the outside, I suppose, and not get into the mix. You know, that's where the danger is going to be with someone like Neal. I think it could probably be like a decision where he kind of picks him apart for 3 rounds.
Look, you've got a lot of other fighters in the gym outside of Omran, and the lads can feel free to hop in here now anytime as well. But Cage Warriors Dublin is going to be a main focus, I would imagine, for the team coming up in a couple of months. How do you see that one going? Like, from a headlining perspective, obviously they came to the RDS there recently. I thought it was relatively successful. I think that it's brilliant that they're coming back, and I think the RDS or a venue of that size is a good move for them. What do you expect from that card? Obviously, I imagine some Team KF involvement. Yeah,
so I'd expect Adam's already on it. Leon will be on it. Taka will be on it. And then I'll probably have one of my, hopefully I'll have one of my young guns open up the card or something like that. You know, possibly a Dom or a Craig McGrattan or someone along those lines. I think, like I said, this is a big year for the club. I think, you know, we've been a fairly young club for a while, and we've been building our roster of pros and building them up through, like, you know, bigger tests. And I think it's a big year where, and I'll say it openly, and I like, you know, I always wear my heart on my sleeve with this stuff. Like, I want someone in the UFC this year. I feel like this is the year I want to push hard for that. I feel like this is the year where that could happen. I feel like we're in position to make that happen now, you know. So I want to end 2024 with a few guys in the UFC and then a few more knocking on the door.
I'm of the opinion that, like, this year is going to be a big year for you as well, Chris. And last year, obviously, lots of ups and downs for the gym, lots of disappointing results. When you're going through moments like that, obviously we come on here, we celebrate the successes, but when, as a gym, when you're going through that as well, when results aren't going your way, like, it must be important to pull together, believe in what you're doing, and look ahead, and then plan for years ahead like you're going to have. And it was a great start this year with Omran. He kind of set the table for everybody in the gym, I assume, with that win.
Yeah, and we had like some kind of like a nice end to the year last year. We had a blip kind of around the October mark. We were kind of doing quite well up to that. Had a blip in October. That was the first time I've ever actually had a situation where I was coaching and we had more losses than wins on a night. Like, obviously when there's more than one fight, so usually if it was like 2 fights, it'd be 1-1 at worst, or if there was 3 fights, we'd have 2 wins and 1 loss. And that was the first time I've ever had a situation where I had 1 win and 2 losses since I started coaching. So, you know, there was a lot of kind of soul searching for myself and back to the drawing board. I had to obviously pick a few of the lads up and dust them off as well. And I think the lads on the team do a lot of that themselves. You know, they follow my lead on that. and there's a fair few leaders from the club. Obviously James is like the team captain, always has been, and then you have guys like Adam and Leon and all step up, and Ryan, and they'll all reach out to the younger guys on the team. And then we had a nice kind of end to the year with Dom, and then we had Dara early, and then and now Omran. So I feel like I have a few Emmys about to come through. I have a few early pros going to make their mark this year, and then I have a few seasoned pros that are really going to show everyone what they're about, But I think it's important, like, to pull together in those moments. But it's also important to be completely honest with lads and explain what the problems were. There's no point going, "Oh, it wasn't your fault," or I think everyone has to take ownership, including myself.
Chris, I know you're probably not going to, you mightn't divulge too much, but what were the conversations like specifically with the likes of Ryan Shelley and Leon after the Cage Warriors losses?
Yeah. So like with Leon, like he was as much as I can from my own side, but Leon was like flirting with the idea of going up to welterweight before that, and I think just because like the cut was drastic down to lightweight and all that kind of stuff, and I think like he was starting to question maybe whether that was the way to be going, find a lightweight. And I think that kind of cemented things when we had a good chat about that his best route is to be fighting at that weight and press on there. I think he felt fairly uncomfortable, kind of sluggish at the bigger weight, didn't feel himself. I think with Ryan, he just I know this sounds like a weird thing, but it actually happens. He just had a bad night. He just had a bad night, and like the horrible thing in air sport, and I've been that guy, the horrible thing in air sport is a bad night is there's loads of people watching and you don't get to make it right for a while, So we went back and we kind of looked at the mental side of things, making sure all that was in place, and then we put some new kind of training methods in place from going forward, because like those two guys I just named there, Leon and Ryan, they're like, the ability they show is like phenomenal in the gym. They're unbelievable. Like, and both of them on that night, even though Leon's is more like a little error, but they're even at that, he's underperforming even though he was winning the fight. He's like there's so much more there out of that kid as well.
With Adam and Ryan, it's kind of strange the way their careers have kind of progressed even over the last year. We had Ryan up there against Tobias Aurelia. He was probably a win there, going to get a title shot in that division, the featherweight division. We have Adam coming in here, Cage Warriors Dublin. You feel with the win, he could get a title shot there. So it's crazy. Adam kind of had somewhat of a slower start than Ryan would have had in his professional career. But, Adam has gone on a hell of a run. And that's one guy who did have a fantastic 2023, deserves that shot in Dublin. And, I agree with you, with a win, he's right up there with a title shot as well.
Yeah, I think like this sport is all momentum, isn't it? It's whoever has the momentum, like, and that's kind of what Adam built in the year. His was that momentum, and when you're winning, like you feel like you can't be beat. You feel like everything's right, and then you pick up a loss or you get hurt in a fight, and then you start questioning things when you're in there, and you just can't. And I would have been guilty of that myself in my career, and I'm always brutally honest with the lads too, So I'd speak to them about that stuff, but you can't let any of that come in. You just have to go and fight. You just have to put your head down, get it done, no matter what. The real great fighters, and this is something I say a lot, the real great fighters win even when they're not performing well. They still pull it out of the bag.
Chris, we spoke about the Cage Warriors card, and obviously you've got Adam on it, but we still don't have a headliner for it. And I think in the last episode, the three of us have kind of gone through who we think is got a headliner, who we'd like to headline. From a coach's perspective, from your perspective, what do you think, or who do you think will headline the card?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there any talk of Paul? I think Paul's probably the biggest guy they could bring. Unless they do an international fight as the headline. I just don't know how that would work with there's obviously are they going to give James a title shot? Any of that kind of stuff,
When you look at Paul's situation and how that's kind of, he's not been able to get that break into the UFC, and you have your guys coming up and potentially going to be challenging for belts over the next year, is there a slight worry that going forward that the opportunity might be limited to get into the UFC after seeing how the Paul Hughes situation has been handled?
Yeah, I don't really know what's happened with Paul. I don't really understand how it played out. I don't know anything about his management situation or anything like that, but like there's other guys, you know, you'd look at other guys on the roster and they've got in. And they like you look at Sherrier, he's got in. You know, you look at other guys on the roster have got in before him. I don't know if do you guys know who he's managed by, or is he managed by anyone, or
Paradigm? Yeah, Paradigm has him.
Right, and do they not have a contact to get him in? Or I would assume they'd have all the contacts to get him in. You know?
Oh, of course they do.
Yeah.
Has he maybe been offered fights and not been able to do them because of injury or something? And then, you know, that dirties your bib. You know how the world is with this stuff. Like, and maybe that's why he's not getting opportunities. I don't really know. I don't really understand. I felt like, for me, I would have been not a doubter. Doubter is the wrong term, but I would have felt like I wanted the finishes out of him. I would have been one of the people saying that, and then he went and did that in Dublin. So I thought that was it, done deal. Like, I thought he was gone then, you know, and he's not. No, it doesn't really. I suppose everyone's their own kind of little journey in this. I think if I can get my lads to the title, I think I can get them in. My big thing is, another reason I want to get someone in this year is because, you know me, once I get in, I'll be drinking in the bar with the matchmakers then, and then I'll be like, this lad, no, that lad, we'd be grand. Come on, you looking for someone that way? I've got someone for you. Don't worry about it.
I love it. One of the routes into the UFC right now, Chris, is Dana White Contender Series, and I think that's somewhat kind of, you know, affected the regional scene in some ways, where we're not. I think it's part of the reason why we're not seeing some of these direct signings into the UFC from Cage Warriors, because Dana White Contender Series happens over the course of 10 weeks. It happens from August all the way up to, I don't know, September, October per se, and it kind of limits. You know, UFC maybe are looking for certain fighters to sign during that period of time, and you know, timing is perfect in mixed martial arts for a lot of things. But what's your opinion on Dana White's Contender Series and what it can offer to fighters? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you think it's after making things more difficult for fighters?
Yeah, I kind of see your point that, like, lads are probably not being signed because they're like, right, well, we'll use him for the Contender Series because they need them. They need that many guys for that. Because you're probably talking, I don't know, your man Al Zelina, he'll like to shout out, but he usually has a breakdown of this. But there's probably like what, 25, 30 guys signed in a few weeks, like, you know, and so they're probably keeping them all for that. So then it probably slows down the first half of the year where no one's getting signed, really, because they're keeping them for those shows. But I do think that's a great route for someone like Adam Shelley. You know, I've said this to him already. I think that's a great route for him to go. So I like it because it could be something that my guys could use. I always liked the big, like, announcement that someone got signed. I've always liked that. I always enjoyed seeing them come up and, you know, like, you're happy for some lad. You're going, like, he gets to announce that he's in, you know, whereas that's kind of stolen from the Contender Series. You almost, like, you're not getting in your merit. You have to fight to get in, you know?
Yeah.
I suppose the other thing is it's kind of like the old tough contracts, right, where you're getting in and it might not be at the most ideal pay point.
Yeah, I don't know what are the contracts like for the Dana White Contender.
Don't take this verbatim. I think it's a 5-5 entry for a Dana White Contender Series fight, a 5 show, 5 win, and then you're coming in at your base level contract and maybe a 10-10 or 12-12, which will raise each fight as you continue on in the UFC. So it's a very smart business plan from the UFC at the same time, where you're coming in.
Is it a long-term contract though? So, like, with the tough contract, it's that, but it's for 10 fights. So by your 10th fight, you could be only on 30 grand or something.
100%, yeah. I don't think it's the same as that. I think it's a shorter term contract. Maybe you're 3 or 4 fights and where you'd have to kind of renegotiate. But I don't know that. I'm
just throwing a grenade and letting Ian take all the. Those contracts.
You know, I suppose if it's giving you the base level contract and that's what you would have got anyway, and now you're getting an opportunity to fight for it, and you mightn't have been the guy that was going to get it on merit. You might have been brought in to fight him and you beat him. You know, that kind of way. Now you're in. So I would have liked it when I was doing it. I'll be honest. I would have liked it when I was doing it. At least it's in your hands then. And knowing me, I probably would have lost the fight to get in there anyway. The way my career went, I would have definitely came up short in that fight.
Is there any chance of you getting back in there? Now that you mentioned that you were or is it all?
Nah,
You had the bag ready the last time you were on with us, so you did, and the mouth guard in the bag and the shorts in the bag. You were saying ready to go.
I kind of feel like I really just don't have. I find it even hard to get the time to prepare for like a grappling comp these days. So but I think I've got like 20 something guys now. A lot of them fighting very regularly, and I kind of am very hands on. Like I don't want anyone else doing anything with them. Like I'll meet them for pads. I'll meet them for to break down fights. I'll meet them to watch tape. I'll meet them to go over little sequences. So the time to get my own training is becoming harder and harder. I kind of have to book grappling comps so that I'll actually get ready for them, so that I'll train properly.
Chris, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things, just generally on Irish MMA. You're a straight talker. Does UFC Dublin happen this year?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
I don't think they have I don't think they can make it work. I think we're a little bit off that. I think a lot of the people that are in now, like when's the last time it came? The last time it came was off the back of Conor. Is there anyone like Conor in the UFC right now?
Conor.
yeah. Conor ain't gonna do it though. Conor's gonna be on a huge show. He comes back, So I just don't think like it'll sell anyway. So they don't really care about that, but it's the publicity it gets. It's the need to go back. I don't know if they have that right now. I think I've been around this a very, very, very long time, and we've been promised a UFC card every year since I started doing this, and that's probably 20 years ago. So I think we've had 3.
Yeah, sure. Ian was fighting a good fight over there in the US, asking Dana some questions, and he was flip-flopping a little bit there each day, depending on what was asked. There are other shows, though, in Ireland at the moment. PFL have obviously purchased Bellator, so I know there was, like, it for the longest time, it was typically SPG fighters on Bellator. A little bit more diversity so far on PFL. We haven't seen anyone from KF. I don't think we've seen anyone from Rhino or FAI yet either. I
will be. Can I just throw a little bit in there, because I don't want there to be some thing about that. I have been asked, so it hasn't been like we've been left out or anything.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, and Dan has been on to me. I just have it's an issue, but it's not an issue, right? So it's a thing in my gym that just the lads are all quite young, and they just want the UFC. That's it, and they're going to do other promotions probably later in their career, either after us in the UFC or if it doesn't work out. But right now they're all so young that they're still on the chase, that kind of way. So they're still, and they're worried, I think, a little bit about obviously signing for an organization. And they're like, there was an offer made to Omran recently, quite a big offer for PFL, and he's in the same boat. He's just like the UFC.
Well, that's great to hear that the offers are there. So like, because like it's hard to know. There's kind of almost like the hangover of the opinion on the Irish scene of the Bellator way. So when PFL have their first show, it's almost like it's not unfair, but it's also not fair at the same time for them to be kind of judging them immediately on their first show, even though that's probably exactly what we did. But like, it's hard to know, have things changed, but it sounds like it's positive steps being made. If you've been offered a fight, would I be correct in saying that that's more than you were offered by Bellator? Yeah,
the only time I ever heard anything from Bellator was like a week notice fight for someone, and it was a guy that wasn't even fighting anymore. He was like finished and just grappling. Outside that, no, I was never offered like, here, would you like to put anyone on this card or anything like that. And Dan has done that, and me and Dan have spoken. We've had phone calls, and I've explained to him who I have and who they're signed with, and he was very interested in Dom and Omran and these kind of people. Like, and so no, like, and I have a lot of time for Dan. He seems like a straight shooter, a nice guy. Like, so yeah.
What percentage would you say are the chances that we will see a Team KF fighter on PFL?
I don't know. It'd have to, like I said, it'd have to be someone that like is which is mental to even say, but is treating it like a career. So just only like the lads are all just have that, and I love that. That's the part I love too. But they have that dream of like, they want to be in the UFC. It's that important to them, So like it would have to be one of the lads just like, look, man, like I want to fight, and I want to fight good guys, but I want to be paid for it now, that kind of way. So maybe one of the lads coming through at the minute.
We've kept you for a while. We've a few more questions for you, Chris, and then I promise we'll let you go. Look, obviously the horrible news in Irish MMA recently has been about Ryan Curtis and the injury he sustained, and obviously as always, we send our well wishes to him and hope that he's getting better. But when news, it kind of gets sent around WhatsApps and everything, and then you see it posted online. News travels fast in Irish MMA. When you get news like something like that, what's your reaction as a coach when you hear something like that happening?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to separate because I'd actually be very close to Ryan. Me and Ryan would be very close. I would have trained in Owens because I was living over this side of the city, over in Swords, even when I was training in John's place back in the day. So I was trekking the whole way across. So some nights I'd just go up to Owens to get sessions in, and Ryan would be up there. So I would have known him since he's like a young, like, I don't know, maybe 15 or something. And I like him a lot. He's a great kid. He's not even a kid anymore. He's a man. I used to trek into town before my own kids came along to get him to do my hair in the ink factory. So I used to head in. We'd have a chat while he was cutting my hair, and all. I have a lot of time for Ryan. It's shocking, and it's it's worrying, and you're kind of like, I'd like. And like I spoke to Liam, and I spoke to a few of the lads off the team and stuff. I'd like to kind of know, and I think it'd be good for everyone to know what happened when they're ready. I don't mean they have to come out, but like almost an exact of what happened, so we can make sure that it doesn't happen. Or if it was just a mad freak accident, well then But if it was a certain movement that we all need to be wary of, it's something you're doing every day, but if it lands wrong, it's a disaster. I've been speaking to Scott Harvey a good bit. He'd be one of Ryan's best mates, and he's been keeping me up to date in his progress and stuff like that, and passing messages to him from me and stuff like that. So it seems like there's been improvements recently. He seems to have some more feeling in his arms. I hope I'm not quoted or I don't get in trouble for any of this, but seems to have a little bit more feeling in his arms, and it can feel stuff in his legs at the moment. So a lot of positives coming out from a horrible situation, but I think everyone kind of is like fully behind him and hoping they can help in any way to get him back where he needs to be.
Chris, we'll finish off with just a couple of more of your team. Darragh Ward, firstly, is signed with Cage Warriors.
Yes.
That's an exciting signing for Cage Warriors. He's been showcasing his abilities over the last year. What's your thoughts on how do you see his kind of Cage Warriors career progressing?
Yeah, so he's most likely waiting on matchups, so nothing agreed yet, but going to be on that Dublin card, I'd imagine. He a lot of ability there. He's still very young too. He's been lucky enough to have the likes of Omran and Leon and all those guys to train with on a regular basis, and Adam and Webby when he comes over, and then he trains between my place and Phil's, and Phil be like kind of I'm kind of almost taking over the coaching role as it were, but Phil's like a mentor, and anything that happens with Darragh goes between me and Phil beforehand, and I hope it always stays that way. But like tons of potential there for the kid, and I think we're going to see a big year for him this year.
100%. Craig McGrattan, obviously another one that's coming up on your team as well. Abundance of talent. What are you expecting for him in 2024?
I think Craig is one of those guys that's actually going to shock a lot of people. I think if you speak to guys off the team, Craig is nearly everyone's hardest round. And you've heard this kind of said about Dom before, and people probably thought we were just blowing smoke up their arse, and then you see the results start to pour in. Craig's a nightmare. He's a nightmare. He's so talented, so good. And I think it's just, that kind of thing when a fighter just finds their flow. He's just starting to find that. He hasn't fought that regularly, and he's kind of just, I think if he can bang out a few in a row, get a few out within a 6-month period, you'll see, like, he's a scary, scary prospect.
100%. You mentioned Dom. He was the last person I was going to mention as well. I mean, with Dom, I was on here after he fought his last fight, Chris, and I said to the boys, and I'm not joking about this, I watched that knockout, I watched that performance. I was pacing around my living room for about 20 minutes after that. The kid is electric. The power that he has. He came on to the Auld Triangle here and gave us a great interview as well.
I know he was on talking about fingering.
Exactly.
Forgot about that.
I was going to go.
Finger and bus stops or something, wasn't it?
Finger floating around. He's a fiend. He's wanted in Germany, I think. I think he's wanted in Germany now.
There won't be a traffic post safe ever again around him. That's what we got from that interview as well. But what we got from his last fight is just the raw talent that he has. Going over there, Chris, behind enemy lines, fighting a real good prospect on a German card and going out and doing what he did. I was blown away. The lads were blown away, and everyone who was watching that was pretty much blown away by Dom. And he's a guy that we're going to be talking about for many years to come, I'm sure, along with the rest of the guys in the gym as well.
Yeah, he's a very exciting prospect, and the thing with all the guys, and like Dom is definitely one of these. Like I get to see the work they put in day out. So when you see them get their awards, and then for you guys like to take notice, and I think I was messaging some of you afterwards saying I appreciate the coverage, like because that's what it takes for these guys to break out. To cross over into like the day-to-day people, the people that just watch the UFC. You need people speaking about them, but he is a real talent and a very, very exciting prospect. I think I think he's type of lad as well. Like if I let him, he'd probably fight 8 times a year. You kind of need to pull the rein on him a little bit. He'd be in there every weekend if he could. He loves it.
He did mention something about getting kind of mixed up in the sparring session with you. We heard his side of the story. What's your side of the story when you came to that? He said he wanted to kind of go in there and do a little bit of moving around. There's a little bit of miscommunication. You guys ended up...
Yeah, so I got told... So this little Milky Bar looking motherfucker walks into the gym, and he's only like fucking 17 at the time, I think. I think he was 16 or 17 at the time. 16 probably, and he comes in, and I'm like taking a class, and then I go down to grab some, and I get told by Kat on the way back up the stairs, that kid was asking to spar you. And I was like, what? She goes, that young lad that came today, Dom, he was saying to the lads, when do we get to spar Chris? So I was like, well, fuck this. Went upstairs, put my gloves and my shin pads on, and I didn't do, because he was young, I didn't go to town with head contact, but I just teeped the body off him like till he realised it was a bad idea. And now he's told me since that it was a complete misunderstanding, so I kind of feel bad about it.
The baptism of fire into Team KF, I tell you that.
Yeah, and you know what though, the kid showed up. He showed up again that night. So that was a Wednesday kickboxing class during the day, and he was back down that night to train again. Yeah, he's a little savage.
How many times do you think he'll fight this year?
I'd like to get him out 4. At least, I think at this stage and the way he trains and all, I think we could put a real dent in things this year, and he could be the guy everyone's talking about next year, about maybe going somewhere or whatever. So I think we could get him a nice run this year. He's the thing with Dom is like how well-rounded he is already, and like a lot of the guys, there's obviously some little areas we'd like to work on, but the roundedness of, like, I think most people probably, you've seen Omran submit people maybe, like, but it's usually when they try to wrestle he catches them. I didn't think anyone kind of knew how good his own wrestling was. You see that single leg, how simple it was, and then that pass straight away and to that submission, and we've drilled that thing. I won the British Open with that exact technique. We've been drilling that thing for about 5 years, that drag to that position. And just to pull it off in a fight at that stage, it's just, yeah, amazing.
Brilliant.
Well, look, Chris, we've kept you more than enough time here today. Best of luck this year. Now, you said at the start of the podcast you were going to break a couple of fights here, so just let you do that now before you leave.
I've already told you who's going to be on the Dublin card. I just haven't given you the opponents yet.
Oh yeah, I thought. Right, look, any last shout outs for fighters in the gym? Anyone that we don't know that's going to arrive in 2024?
There's a good few Emmys coming through right now. I actually have 2 guys, and I've a new pro that's just joined the team as well. Omar, he's training between here and Finland at the moment. But I've two young Amis having their Ami debut. Both of them are 19, and I think they're going to make a big splash this year. That's Adam and Glenn. They're coming. They're training. Coming out from Drogheda. They're training twice a day, every day, and then sleeping in the gym most nights in sleeping bags and stuff. So they want it. They want it. And like I said at the start, if I see that from a kid, I'll do everything to make sure it works. That's all you're looking for as a coach. I always say that I haven't taken any money off anyone that I've ever trained. I've never taken a penny from any fighter that I've ever trained. And the payment to me is that, if you put the effort in, and if you're not paying me with your effort, well, then you're not going to train with me.
Well, look, Chris, never mind you. I hope that Omran starts charging them some rent anyway and making a few pounds. But I appreciate you joining us again. We won't leave it 2 years next time before having you on again. But look, best of luck with everything with the gym this year, and congratulations again on Omran's title win. But yeah, appreciate the time, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks, lads. Appreciate it.
All right, lads, let's take a little bit of a look ahead. A couple of fights that have been announced coming up. Obviously, the biggest ones for Cage Warriors Dublin, a couple of fights on the Cage Warriors London card as well. That's where we'll stop first. James Webb will go in there against Yannick Bahadi in the light heavyweight division. James moving up there to light heavyweight. In the middleweight division, we have FAI Sean McCormack, who's going in against Joe Middleton. Andy, what do you think about those two fights? James Webb going up to light heavyweight. He's taking a step up in the division there. And obviously Sean McCormack coming in at his natural weight in middleweight. And I like that fight against Joe Middleton for him as well. After, he's had some tough competition at the start of his professional career. And I think this is for Sean McCormack, I think this is a good fight for him to kind of showcase his ability.
Yeah, 100%. I think Sean was out in Thailand for a bit doing some work, so I'm sure he'll be looking to showcase kind of what he's learned. But obviously, we've seen Sean in some really tough fights. Like he's fought Oban Elliott already in his career, which was a tough fight for him. And look, he's exchanged wins and losses, but I thought at times he's shown a lot of promise. So what I just like to see is him competing relatively regularly over the next year or so. And I think that Cage Warriors is a good, or anywhere really. He went back to the region and got an armbar, and now he's back in Cage Warriors. So I think this to me, it's just let's just see him compete. Let's just see how he looks over the next 3-4 fights, and then we can maybe have more of an assessment at that point. But I'm looking forward to seeing him back, because when he's on form, he's really fun to watch.
100%. Look, Caoilte, Cage Warriors Dublin, we got the announcement of Adam Shelley against Emmanuel Sabatino. Decky McAleenan is coming back against William Markanian. Jordan O'Neill on the card. Very excited to see Jordan in the yellow gloves against Francisco Mazzeo. Emer Darcy, who was on with us the last time on the Auld Triangle, she gave us a 0%, but we have 100% that we're going to see Emer Darcy in Cage Warriors on the Dublin card against Jenny Lynn.
The news dropped about 2 seconds after we released the episode. We're like, shite.
Yeah, the worst timing ever. I messaged Emer and I was like, so you can tell us now it's 100%. And she was like, yeah, sorry, bad timing. So look, that's the way it works out sometime. And of course, we couldn't get too much information out of Chris in the interview, but he did suggest, we're going to see the Bocelli brothers. We're going to see Taka. We're going to see Leon. We might even see Dom Norcus in the yellow gloves a little bit later on in the year. That would be very, very exciting off the fights that we do have so far, Caoilte. Anyone's that standing out to you so far?
Yeah, I'm buzzing to see Jordan O'Neill in the yellow gloves. Sorry, now my throat's kind of gone here. But look, I'm excited. He's been on a tear. He's been really exciting prospect ever since the amateurs, and now he's kind of coming through. And I don't know about you, but there seems to be a thing in Cage Warriors where if you're Irish, you're always, 90% of the time, you're probably going to fight an Italian fella. And we're seeing twice in this card now. So I'm enjoying the kind of...
Poor Italians, to be fair.
Yeah,
poor Italians.
We don't give them an easy time of it, but look at, that's we're going back to 1994, was it? Or 1990, that old rivalry has been brewing for a long time. They beat us on the soccer field, but they haven't had too much luck inside the cage in recent years anyway. But last but not least, we got to say in the fight announcements, a really, really exciting one here, Andy. You broke the news, obviously, earlier on this week. PFL Paris has a new fight added on to that. That's Andreas Binder, who's going in there to take on Alexander Shizov. It will be obviously Andreas's PFL debut. He had the unfortunate incident, obviously, that he didn't make weight. I'm looking forward to seeing him rectify that, getting in there against Alexander Shizov. And look, at Andreas loves to prove people wrong. I'm going to go out there. This is a tough fight for Andreas on his debut. Shizov was a guy who was highly touted going in to the lightweight tournament last year. But you know what, Andy? There's no better man than Andreas Binder to go out there, put on a performance, and prove everybody wrong again. And I'm sure he's looking forward to doing that. What were your thoughts on the fight? What can you tell us about the fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's a banger of a fight, and I do think he's got his hands full against Shizov. Now, that's obviously not to say that he can win it, but really going in here, he missed weight last time, so first and foremost, he needs to hit. He needs to hit the mark on those scales.
For sure.
I don't think he's ever missed weight before, and look, I'm sure there's. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I'm sure there was probably mitigating details or things like that. But at the end of the day, most people don't hear about those, and for all intents and purposes, they don't really matter. You kind of have to just do it, which isn't, that's just the way it is. So
I think the old statement is, look, unfortunately, if you sign the contract, you've got to make the way, and things and barriers will stand in your way. But look, it's not as if this has been a huge problem with Andreas. It's the first time it happened, and it's happened to a lot of fighters. And I would be fairly confident in him coming back and getting the job done this time when it comes to making weight. Obviously, that's the first job he has to do. The second job is the Shizov fight itself, then that's going to be another tough task.
And I'm delighted he's gotten the opportunity again, because he's riding high in that 3-fight win streak. Obviously, he had the Aiden Lee fight, which was brilliant and a brilliant performance. But Shizov, coming into the tournament last year, he was kind of the guy that was earmarked as the favourite. Didn't play out that way. He lost in Berlin, and we didn't see him compete again. So he's going to be coming out here with something to prove. And it's a tough fight. But I also think that while we were critical of some fights that were on that PFL Dublin card at the end of last year, when it comes to the tournaments, there are no easy fights. Like whether it's Shizov, whether you're going in against a Skatizi or a Mitchell or a Tuke or whoever. I'm forgetting the lad who actually won the thing now, who fought both Tuke and Mitchell. I don't know why his name's escaping me, but
Jakub Kazuba,
that's the one. But like, they're all tough fights, so it's sink or swim once you get into these tournaments. And look, as you said, no better man than Andreas. I'm sure, I've no doubt that he has the capability of rising to the occasion, but he's a tough fight in his hands here.
Definitely does. I'm looking forward to see that.
Sorry, just on that as well. I don't think this is in the tournament either.
Oh, really?
So I didn't put in the article because I don't have the fully confirmed details as to whether Andreas is an alternate or Shizov's an alternate, or if maybe just one of them is, or I'm not too sure. But my understanding is that Andreas is an alternate for the tournament, and this isn't in the tournament itself. Now, that may change. I don't know. These things often change.
If going off recent history in tournaments, anything can happen there. So even if you are an alternate.
Exactly.
And I think it's a smart move, Caoilte, by PFL to kind of put in alternates here, because we saw what happened in the women's 125-pound division there with Valentina Skatizi, was that her first name? Or she obviously kind of got a bye in the semi-finals, where you're kind of coming in somewhat cold after not competing now after a last number of while. So we've seen Bellator do alternates, we've seen PFL maybe do alternates as well, and it's no harm to be thrown into the mix there, because injuries can happen. You never know what happens in these tournaments. It's a mad scene.
Yeah, a mad opportunity could fall at your feet in the drop of in any time at all. Like, someone could get, on a few days' notice, someone could pull out, and you're in the mix for $100,000 fight and the title. So it's good to see. You don't as much as good as it is for fighters to get to a final with few fights. It's a tournament for a reason. You want to see them fight, and the fact that they have alternates just means that they'll be able to plug any gaps that they may have. To avoid anything like that happened last year. So no, it's good, and it's a great opportunity for him. And if he can take it with both arms now, then he's he could be set.
Yup, out of that. Alan Philpott will be stepping in on February 10th for the eternal MMA bantamweight title against Rod Costa. That's an exciting one. It's great to see Alan back in there. Hopefully we might get the chance to speak with him. We'll see how the fight goes, and hopefully everything goes to plan for him. But he's back in. He's competing for a title in Eternal. Eternal is a pretty damn good promotion over there in Australia. I think it's run actually by Casey O'Neill's dad. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty good one. It's good to see Alan in there competing for titles as well.
It is. It's brilliant. Like Alan, we kind of said before, he's one of the OGs in Irish MMA, and one of the veterans. And he's still young. I think he's still only in his early 30s. But like he's probably
we're talking about guys with Dennis Frimpong. Alan has 35 professional fights right now. You know what I mean? So that's absolutely insane. The guy has been around since the obviously the start of Irish MMA, really, to be honest. Like I remember seeing Alan Philpott's name from the very, very start. He was competing on those shows, and he's still there, still up there competing, and it's great to see, in my opinion.
And like Alan Philpott's the type of fighter, like on his day, he could be a world beater. Now, his career, I guess, has been the story of his career is finding that consistent form or the chase of that consistent form. And I think back to when he had that fight on Bama with Shea Philpott, where he was putting on a masterclass performance, and then he lands that illegal kick or illegal knee or whatever it was. And then he obviously had the run in that was a Road to One or One Warrior series or whatever the show was, and he was doing really, really well, and then stumbled at the final hurdle and he'd come back. He just hasn't really captured that form. But lately, I think he retired for a bit, even came back. He's up at 145 now, and he seems to have found the form again. And I thought he looked great in his last fight out, and now he's getting the opportunity here to fight for a title out in Australia. So it'd be brilliant to see Alan kind of get his day in the sun, and he's called as well to come back and fight in Ireland. So it'd be very interesting to see, could he win this title? I don't know what way it works with contract.
He wouldn't be a bad shout for that Belfast card either, I tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wouldn't be too bad at all there. So
he'd be a ticket seller there.
Absolutely, he would. Absolutely. And it'd be great to see him back as well. Like, I mean, I'm sure he'd be busting to fight on a card like that as well. Norman Park is actually fighting MMA coming up.
Another man you could get in that Bellator Belfast show.
There we go. It's starting to rack up there. Who needs Bellator? I don't know how many matchmakers are left over there, but the boys on the Auld Triangle have you sorted out here for talent on the cards. 10th of February as well. Fame MMA in Krakow. He goes against Mikhail Pasternak. I'm after butchering that. Sorry, Sean Denny. But yeah,
Michał. I'll save us here. Is Michał Michal? Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
I think, Denny, you better give us the flowers. I think it's Michał
Pasternak. Yeah, fair play. Fame MMA back in the cage. It's good to see Norman Park in the small gloves again. But yeah, it's been great fun following Norman over the last number of years. He's been going out there huge in Poland right now, caused a big stir over there fighting, in the celebrity. This is kind of in that celebrity kind of Fame MMA organization, but this is an actually legit MMA fight, I believe. So good to see Norman back. We spoke to Chris. We forgot to actually ask him about this. We have Kingdom Combat Championship also on February 10th. Busy day for us on February 10th, lads. Roman David fighting for the welterweight title against Jordan Rutherford. Julian Renault is on that card also against Ethan Quinn. So we have a couple of amateurs there. Caoilte going over there to the UK to fight for belts and to kind of get a run out over there as well. McKinney Ademi is fighting Cedric Lockhart in a lightweight fight at BFL over in my neck of the woods in Vancouver. Well, close to my neck of the woods. That'll be on UFC Fight Pass. The two KF boys, McKinney fighting Caoilte. What are your thoughts on those boys? Are you looking forward to seeing them in action?
Yeah, it's good to see. The activity is we're seeing the early kind of signs of what's to come with the year ahead now and the activity of lads. So it's good to see lads going abroad to other promotions as well and try and pick up titles and get that experience against guys in other countries and see what level they're really at. Because I guess in the likes of these Kingdom and that, like, you're gonna get some really tough fights, like that Jordan Rutherford fight. That's going to be a very tough fight for Roman David, and it'll be a really good one too. I'm not sure about that Ethan Quinn, but I imagine it's still going to be a very tough one ahead of them both. But great experience. And as for Vancouver, telling you, the Irish abroad, I love our section for Irish abroad. It's dedicated to you, Ian. You need to get
There you
down to
go.
one of those BFL cards.
Double Agent O'Neill. I pull out the Canadian passport when it suits me, and I pull out the Irish one when I'm going back home as well. So it's good to have it. It's a bit of a too far of a trek for me to kind of make that as well. Oh man, I moved to the only province in the whole of Canada that doesn't really have a whole lot of MMA there. I'm disgusted, but look, we'll try and figure it out. Maybe I could go on a bit of a campaign over here.
You might have sort of soccer tournament that coincides with their Ronaldinho over here.
Oh, Levinson now. Jesus, when you see my soccer playing now, it's far from that. But I think that covers everything for the podcast, lads. Did I miss anything? Any final thoughts before we get on ahead of the next show?
I think we've got everything. Final thoughts. I was just going to say when we were talking about Norman Park there, for all I know, he could have been wrestling in that show we saw in Mexico City, because whether it's a phone box, a boxing ring, a cage, you never really know where he's going to pop up or in what capacity. So, I was thinking that as you're talking, but yeah, I mean, we're easing into 2024, aren't we? Because I'm looking ahead to the end of February or the second half of February, and we've got.
That's what I was saying. I was going to finish off with that. It was a quite January in Irish mixed martial arts. Obviously, we got a couple but business is a booming in February. We've got the big Cage Legacy cards coming up. We got the big Cage Conflict card coming up. Obviously, PFL is going to be starting up. We'll have Bellator back, so we better buckle up. Irish MMA is coming at us hot. We will be
Saturday, the 17th of February. So you see that one? Ian Gary, Cage Legacy, and KSW on the same night.
Oh my goodness gracious me. Give me all of that. Until the next time, thanks for staying on with us. If you lasted this long, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I always forget to say it at the start, but we do appreciate the support. Give us an old 5-star review on Spotify. Just share it out. If you know someone who's into mixed martial arts or wants to know a little bit more about Irish mixed martial arts, this is the place to be. Caoilte, see us out.
Garmi and Mahagriv, August Longafol.